I had been sitting there for a long time, staring at the faint glow of the kitchen light that spilled across the countertop, the hum of the fridge filling the silent spaces in the house. The air was thick with a tension I could almost taste, metallic and sharp. I wasn't smiling yet, not really. I was thinking, calculating, letting everything sink in before the words finally formed. It was one of those moments you don't forget, a moment that feels like it stretches and twists inside you until the edges of reality blur. I could hear her moving in the bedroom, the soft creak of the floorboards, the shuffle of her steps. My stomach was tight, a knot that refused to loosen. I could feel my pulse in my temples, a slow, deliberate rhythm that seemed louder than the soft, domestic sounds surrounding me. She came in holding a mug, steam rising from the coffee inside. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands escaping to frame her face, and her eyes, those eyes I had known for years, carried a fatigue that ran deeper than tiredness. There was a softness to her expression, the kind that comes from comfort, from familiarity, and I felt a pang of something complicated and bitter in my chest. She sat across from me, her hands wrapped around the mug as if it could shield her from whatever storm she sensed brewing but couldn't name. "Why are you smiling?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, a question that sounded innocent but carried an undercurrent of suspicion. She always noticed things like this. The way I shifted my weight. The way my lips curved without reason. She had a keen awareness of me, of the small movements that betrayed my thoughts before I spoke them aloud. That awareness had once been something I admired, something comforting. Now it felt like a blade. I took a breath and let the words tumble out, careful yet deliberate, almost surgical in the way they separated the truth from the lie she expected. "You're pregnant, and it's not mine," I said, and the silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. I watched her mug tremble slightly, the heat from her hands transferring into mine through the ceramic, though I didn't reach out to touch it. I let her digest it, let the weight of it settle in the air between us. Her eyes widened, not just in shock, but in that sharp, acute disbelief that makes you wonder if the person across from you is suddenly a stranger. The realization wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about trust, about betrayal, about everything she had carefully woven into the life we shared. I saw the confusion first, then the flicker of anger, and behind it, a shadow of fear. She always feared being caught, even in small things, even in moments where consequences seemed impossible. But this was bigger than anything she had ever feared. "You," she started, voice catching somewhere between disbelief and accusation. What are you?" Her words faltered as she searched for footing in a conversation that had already collapsed. I didn't interrupt. I let her stumble, let her navigate the chaos she had created. There was a quiet power in stillness, a power I had learned over years of being dismissed, overlooked, minimized. Sometimes, the loudest statement you make is not a word, but a pause, a refusal to meet the illusion someone else has built. The coffee cup trembled slightly in her hands. Her lips parted, and I could see the subtle shift in her expression, the betrayal of control she usually held so firmly. It was an odd sensation, witnessing her unravel in a way I never had, even in arguments that once left me shaken and defensive. I realized in that moment that everything had changed, and not just between us but within me. I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years, a sharp recognition of what I deserved and what I refused to tolerate any longer. I had been happy once, or at least I thought I had been. That happiness had been quiet, steady, and the kind that doesn't make noise. It was filled with small rituals, coffee together in the morning, shared glances across a room, the comfort of routine. But beneath that surface, I had felt the subtle erosion of respect, the slow decay of intimacy that can happen when two people drift without acknowledgement, when one person continues to invest while the other withdraws. There had been warning signs, countless tiny moments I had dismissed or rationalized, and now they all lined up in stark clarity. Her breath hitched as she realized the implications of my words. The anger, the disbelief, the panic, it all unfolded without my interference. I simply sat there, quiet, letting the truth hang in the air like smoke. The room seemed smaller suddenly, the walls closer, the light harsher. I had often wondered how a single sentence could change everything. Now I knew. One sentence could dismantle years of routine, of appearances, of what had felt like stability. She finally put the mug down, the clatter echoing like a gunshot in the silence. Her hands lingered over the countertop, fingers splayed as if she were trying to anchor herself. I watched her carefully, noting every micro-expression, every subtle tremor that revealed her panic. There was no denying it. She had known, on some level, that she had crossed lines she could not uncross. And I had finally spoken aloud the truth that had lingered unspoken, the truth that would no longer allow pretense. I leaned back slightly, letting the chair creak beneath me, and let my eyes meet hers fully for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The smile I wore wasn't of amusement, not of joy. It was a smile of recognition, of liberation. I had crossed a line too, yes, but it was one of self-preservation, of reclaiming dignity that had slowly been chipped away. I could feel the old weight lifting from my shoulders, a liberation that came not from vindication but from honesty. Her voice came again, quieter this time, almost a whisper. You can't just say that." The disbelief lingered, but there was an edge of calculation creeping in. She was thinking now, processing, trying to maneuver within the constraints of reality I had forced upon her. But I didn't give her answers. I gave her space, the silent boundaries that had been absent for too long. I had finally placed myself at the center of my own story, no longer an accessory to her whims or neglect. And in that moment, I realized the real battle had never been about pregnancy. It had never been about lies or secrets, or even betrayal in its rawest form. It had been about respect, about awareness, about the willingness to see another person as a full, complex being rather than a placeholder, a convenience, or a reflection of one's desires. I saw the fissures in her carefully constructed image of us, the cracks where honesty had been ignored for comfort. And I smiled, not cruelly, not spitefully, but with a quiet recognition of the power of clarity. I could feel the shift in the room, subtle but absolute. The air seemed lighter, though the tension remained, a paradox of liberation and consequence. I was no longer trapped in the patterns that had dictated our life together. I had spoken the truth, and in doing so, I had carved a space for myself that could not be invaded. The freedom was immediate, visceral, and intoxicating in its simplicity.